doctor from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, for the last generation, you have a choice.
The Republican candidate
I did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations
And
with
I
that woman.
realized that this is something he is
We're not going to
inherent.
be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to Backfire right here at the Village Green Town Center and Whoop Studio. Hey, got a good week going on here this week. We got John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey with us. But one of the things I wanted to mention is this $500 million lottery ticket that's out there. Maybe we ought to have the United States government buy one of them to help pay our debt off.
Well, they're selling them to help pay the debt off. So, I mean, it's amazing to me. We can't ask people to pay taxes, but we can prey on their weaknesses and sell them lottery tickets that the vast majority will never win ever. Maybe
we ought to get Obama to get one of his czars all cranked up and just claim that $500 million.
Well, we're so worried about people paying too much interest to their banks, but we're not worried about ripping them off ourselves as the government with a lottery ticket.
$500 million. I bet those lottery tickets are going to really sell next. When's the next drawing on that?
It's tonight.
Oh, tonight. I better get out and get me one.
You better get moving.
My dad was fundamentally opposed to it. He didn't like the gambling aspect of it, but the girls in the office, when they first started that, when it got big like this, they'd drive down across the border to Georgia and buy their tickets, and they were all talking about who was going to go and what tickets to buy. And Dad said, well, how much is that? And it was something like $300 million. He went, well, here's $5. And I told him, I said, so let me see, Dad, you're fundamentally opposed to it until it gets to $300 million. Well, I'm just making a donation to the education system.
Well, my father-in-law used to do the same thing. When it got high enough, he'd go buy a couple tickets or something just to, he said he wanted to help the education.
There you go.
Anyway, if you haven't bought your lottery tickets, we better go out and buy one today, haven't we, John?
Well, I don't buy them very often, but apparently I think they shut the thing down an hour before the drawing. So I did that one time. Lisa said, go buy one. And I said, well, it's not till 10. I went in at 2 minutes after 9, and the machines were shut down. So keep that in mind if you don't.
And you never heard the end of it, have you?
We weren't going to win anyway.
Well,
so.
you know, I don't ever buy these lottery tickets, but I was traveling last week, and there was a sign up there, lottery. I forget how much it said there, and I said, well, you know what? I said, I guess I better buy one of those lottery tickets, and I handed the girl $1.
It's two now.
She said, that'll be another $1. I said, I thought the ticket was $1.
Well, that was a scam, too. And, of course, that's kind of the kind of thing the government does. They said, oh, well, we're going to drop the number of numbers you can pick from, which will increase your odds of winning, and that's why we're raising it to $2. The problem was they doubled the price. If you were doing a parallel thing, you would have cut the numbers in half.
Hey, where's our president today?
He's out speaking today.
Where is he, though?
I don't know what
Philadelphia or someplace?
Yeah, I don't know what city he's in.
I think I heard he was touring Philadelphia or someplace. Anyway, in Philadelphia during the election, it was there was kind of a odd something that happened. There was like 59 precincts that got zero Romney votes. So I guess
not over 19,000 total votes in those precincts,
Here
and not
we
a
go
single
again.
person voted for Romney.
So you think that's why he might be in the Philly area today?
Well, it's amazing. CNN actually did a report. Now, you think about this. They did a news report on some precincts in Texas where Obama only got 5 or 6% of the vote. But they didn't have a single problem with 59 precincts in Philadelphia that didn't give a single vote to Romney.
There's not a problem with voter ID, though.
Of course not.
So did they have voter ID there?
Well, actually, we don't know, because in Philadelphia, Republican poll watchers who are legally supposed to be there were illegally removed from the polling place by the Democrat authorities.
Guys, I got news for you.
A judge had to intervene,
You lost.
Franklin. Oh, I'm
Get
not saying.
used to it.
Look, Franklin.
You lost.
You're right. But if one vote was stolen,
No.
we should find out why
For
that
4
vote was
years,
stolen.
I've listened to a incessant series of complaints trying to question the legitimacy of the president. And here you go again.
No.
You lost. A majority of the American people voted for President Obama. You may not like it, but they did.
Franklin, you're right. But guess what? That has absolutely nothing to do with how many votes were stolen. One stolen vote is too many.
That's right. Hey, Franklin, I had someone just text me, said they wished you'd win the lottery so you could
I'd go away?
No, so you could get a feeling of what paying taxes would be like.
Oh, I pay them.
Pay them. Actually, Steve, I'm excited about that. I just saw a little headline that Eva Longoria has signed a $100 million deal. So I am vastly looking forward to her cutting a check for at least 30 to 40 million to the government, because she thinks the rich ought to pay. So I want to see her pay.
Well, I was going to say, I see that Steve has this this article out here that Warren Buffett wrote yesterday.
Yeah.
That was in the paper, urging Congress to raise tax rates. As part of it.
But he also made some comments that he thought the $250,000 was needed to be raised to $500,000.
Well, actually, we can talk about that. I've got a bunch of stuff on Warren Buffett because, interestingly, Franklin, when they raise that tax, Warren Buffett won't pay a dime of it. His money's already earned. So he can advocate increased taxes on the wealthy that earn this money, but it won't tax the money he's already got. Well, wait a minute, it's even better than that. By increasing the tax on new people earning money, he actually helps increase his competitiveness, because then they won't have as much money to buy stocks that he's trying to buy. So he's got a real vested interest in this.
So you're arguing that Warren Buffett's motivation is strictly to make profits?
I'm arguing that if Warren Buffett really wanted to make a difference, then he could ask for that tax to be imposed on money that's already been earned.
Well, he certainly does, because he's also the person who's advocated imposing and raising the inheritance tax, which certainly would apply to his family.
It won't apply to his, because he's got it all sheltered, Franklin. Warren Buffett's quite a sharp guy. All of his money's sheltered. So he wouldn't affect the inheritance tax, and this increase in taxes that he's calling for won't touch any of his $40 billion that he currently sits on. By the way, he also makes the statement in this op-ed piece that investors won't be affected by increased tax rates, that nobody would walk away from a good deal. Well, that's interesting, because in his autobiography, when he first started Berkshire Hathaway, he bought into a company, and he kept buying stock in the company until he was the majority stockholder. Then he pressed the company to divide their interest and separate the two wings of the company. Well, one of the other board members said, fine, let's just do it and don't worry about the tax consequences. Now, this is Warren Buffett's own words when he said, well, if we divide the tax up just equally among us, that might be fine. But if you get one share based on the shares of the taxes and I get 29 shares because I own so many more shares, then I'm not going to do the deal. So there's Warren Buffett walking away from a deal because he was going to have to pay his fair share of the taxes when he writes an op-ed piece saying that investors would never do that.
The most successful capitalist in 50 years,
well,
bar none, has been advocating for the last 5 years that tax rates need to be raised. And he's pointed out a few,
and it won't touch his $40 billion income.
He's pointed out a few things that get overlooked. First of all, he made scads and scads of money while taxes were a lot higher than they are now. That's a fact.
And employment was higher, and we weren't in the middle of a recession.
And one of the reasons for that is because there's no money flowing to the middle class. That's the reason we're having a recession. Your party is married to the idea that the only thing that drives the economy is lowering tax rates on people at the very top. That's not true. A thriving middle class is what drives the economy, and that's what will make more money for the people at the top.
Is the middle class going to be paying more taxes under Obama?
Well, they've paid less so far. They got tax cuts. Whether they're going to go up or not, I don't know. It's part of an overall deal.
It's going to have to happen.
Well, the taxes would have to double on every rate, including the low rates, to cover the debt that we're incurring right now.
Hey, Franklin, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If you were given a house in Philadelphia, you had a new job that you took in Philadelphia, someone gave you a free house to live in one of those precincts where there was no Romney voters, would you live there?
Sure, why not?
I just want to make sure.
First of all, I'm really skeptical about this claim, so let's be clear about that.
I'm just
usually I can tell by whatever source this came from.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Actually, we did pull a trick on you.
We did?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a decoy?
I have heard of a decoy.
Well, I laid this article down there and let you see it. So you'd bring it up, then John jumped on it on Buffett.
I'll be honest, I'm tired of hearing Warren Buffett talk about this crap.
That's because he's tired of a capitalist who doesn't agree with it.
No, I'm tired of a rich oligarch who has his fingers in the government, who uses the government to handicap his competitors, which is exactly what an increased tax rate will do. It won't touch his $40 billion of assets that he's sitting on. Matter of fact, Franklin, when he bought guess what? When he bought his assets, Franklin, he didn't put them in Berkshire Hathaway's normal accounts. He put it under the corporate umbrella to shield it from income taxes. So this guy is playing by one set of rules and trying to force another set of rules on everyone else.
I dare say if you look up the price of Berkshire Hathaway stock in the paper, you're not going to find many of his investors who are displeased at the way he runs his company.
You know what, Franklin? I didn't say that at all. What I said was that he's talking one thing and he's walking something else. He walked away from a huge deal because he was going to have to pay his fair share of the taxes. And then he has the gall to write an op-ed piece saying that no other investor would ever act like that.
Well, he also advocated raising the capital gains rate, too. And that would certainly affect him.
Well, Franklin, no, here's the problem. Yeah, it'll affect him, but
it'll affect him to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
You're right, but he's worth $40 billion. If you're a young upstart, it will keep you from being able to compete with Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett knows what little bit of increased taxes he will get, he can weather perfectly fine. Like, even if we taxed his assets at this new rate that he wants, his current assets, he's still going to have $36 billion to play with. Well, if you're an upstart trying to compete with him and they raise your taxes, you don't have the money to compete with him. So he knows that he's sitting in a winning position, and he's using the government to actually handicap his potential competitors.
So now your argument is that because this person has played under the rules that you're advocating, now shouldn't be listened to.
No, I'm saying
that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that this person is a hypocrite. This person has broken all the very things that he says shouldn't be done and that wouldn't be done.
I think what he's saying is, here are the rules. I'm playing by them, but these shouldn't be the rules.
Franklin,
and the rules ought to be changed.
What I'm telling you about the taxes, in his op-ed piece, he said that no investor would walk away from a good deal simply because of the increased taxes.
That's not what he said at all.
He walked away from a deal.
I read the article. What he said was that the Republican suggestion is this, that somehow, because taxes have been raised, that investors are going to leave the money in their checking account and earn 1% interest, as opposed to a deal where they might earn 10%, only because they can't earn 15%. That's really what you're saying, which makes no sense at all.
Well, Franklin, I agree that's what he said.
That's what he said.
Let me read you out of his autobiography about the deal. He had a deal put together. He owned the majority of this stock. One of the other guys said, fine, we'll just let the taxes fall where they may and we'll pay it based on per share ownership, which means because he's the majority owner, he would have paid the majority of the tax. This is Warren Buffett's own words. But who is this us? If everyone around the table wants to do it per capita, that's fine. In other words, divide it up among all of us equally. But if you want to do it in a ratio of shares owned, and you get 10 shares worth of tax, and I get 24,000 shares worth it, forget it. So that's Warren Buffett walking away from a good deal because he was going to have to pay his actual share of the tax. So that makes him a complete hypocrite.
Hey, where's our president?
Again, I don't know where he's giving a speech today, but I heard on the radio he was giving a speech somewhere today.
Well, let's see. We still hadn't heard anything about Benghazi from him.
Well, that's not true, Steve. He gave a press conference and answered questions about it.
Actually, CBS has requested the photos from the Situation Room, which he released on bin Laden. They refused to release that.
It's also true that about 11 witnesses have given testimony under oath to Congress.
Right, that contradicts sworn statements by other people.
It did not. And it's like last week, John. You came in here and said said, oh, Petraeus said this, and this, and that's not what he said at all.
Well, now we have a statement that the talking points, now this is the kind of lawyerly conduct that they talk in, that the talking statements were now changed, now get this, by Clapper's office. And Clapper's the National Security Director. They didn't say Clapper, James Clapper, they said Clapper's office. So once again, we don't know who changed. I guess some secretary in the National Security Advisor's office
Probably the same person who changed
it.
your story from last week. Last week you said that General Petraeus came in and testified that they knew on the night of the attack that Al-Qaeda had done this. He didn't say any such thing. What he said was, we knew that it was a terrorist act, possibly
then why
related
did Secretary
to Al-Qaeda.
Rice?
But even today,
Did he say it was a terrorist
but
act?
even today,
Did he say it was a terrorist
just
act?
like the president.
Well,
did
why
the
didn't the
next day.
Secretary Rice say that?
Yeah.
And the president didn't say it for 16 days.
That's a lie.
No,
He
Franklin.
said it the next day in the road
No,
garden.
he did not,
No.
Franklin. He did not say Benghazi was a terrorist attack. He said no terrorist attack will ever dissuade us.
But he was talking about
No,
what
he
had
wasn't.
happened.
Actually, the context of that sentence was not in
Now
relation
who's
to
being
Benghazi.
lawyerly? You know the context.
Well,
Franklin,
let me
that
ask
was
Come
the
on,
closing
John.
statement, and he was talking about American resolve. And matter of fact, a day later,
Then why was he doing it? Because we had an
a
attack
day
the
later,
before.
Franklin, he was point blank asked, and they refused to answer it. His press secretary, Jay Carney, was point blank asked, and they refused to say it.
John, at 4 o'clock in the morning, as far as I can tell, Fox News shovels out a bunch of crap. You guys swallow it, and then you come in here and regurgitate it, even though there's no facts behind it. That's not what the president said. It's not what Petraeus said last week, and you guys just make it up.
Well, Franklin, one of the reasons we can't talk about facts is because the White House won't release anything.
The reason we can't talk about facts is because your party's not interested in
Well,
facts.
talk
All
about-
you're interested about is slander.
When you know what, CBS News is interested in facts
Oh,
because
you mean-
they requested
you mean-
images.
you mean the-
CBS.
you mean the liberal news organization that's in Obama's pocket?
You're right. Even a few of them are trying to get to the bottom of this. They asked for images on October 31st. They were sent to the press office. Then they were sent to the press director. Then they were sent back to the White House. So far, they've received none of the photos like they released of the bin Laden raid. They've asked for the emails on the day of the attack. They've received none of those. Now, the president in a press conference said that they were going to, this quote, provide every bit of information we have. They have released absolutely nothing.
You don't know what's been provided to the congressional committees that are operating
I know
under
that CBS
classified
News
rules,
is making all kinds of requests and being denied.
That's right. And some of these things are classified information that they're not entitled
Well,
to.
last year, reporters were given details of the decision-making, timeline, and players
Well, was
regarding the
that
Osama bin
classified?
Laden. Let me see if I got this straight. The attack that killed Osama bin
I
Laden
ask you
was
a question.
open to the press.
I ask you a question. If you know the answer, answer it. If you don't, quit acting like
Well,
you do.
Franklin, that's the
Was it classified
that's
or not,
the beauty
John?
of this. Who classifies it? The people who are trying to hide it. I don't get to classify things, Franklin. The
That's
president
right.
does.
Fortunately, you don't.
Well, he didn't seem to be worried about letting the doctor that led us to bin Laden be named and arrested and held in prison. That didn't seem to be important enough to classify.
How much of it has he told us about what's happened here? I mean,
Nothing.
That's right.
They
Nothing.
just bounce around, and every
It's
time
not true.
something.
How about Miss Rice? Should she be promoted to the take Hillary?
Well, I don't know.
Clinton's
Which do
place?
you want? Do you want to assume that she misled the public, or do you want to assume that she's incompetent? Because those are your two choices.
Neither of those are the
Of course,
choices.
if you
before.
criticize her, you're a racist and a sexist.
That's right.
Well, I know you don't want to argue about any facts again, John. It's so much easier to slander people.
Well, let's hear
but
the
let's
facts.
talk about facts.
Okay.
Here's what the facts are, which, by the way, is what General Petraeus testified to also and was in his statement. She got a series of what they call talking points that were given to her, and she went out and relayed them as people do on these Sunday morning talk shows
Let me ask
every
you a
day.
question.
Hold on,
I
I'm
know,
not
I just
done.
want to ask a question.
I'm not
I want to
done.
insert a question. Were they the same talking points that originally left the CIA office?
I do not know the answer to that question.
We don't either,
Neither
do we?
you. But guess what? There's no dispute that that's what she was handed.
Who
Why
handed
wasn't
it to her?
Why wasn't Hillary talking instead of her?
Why Susan
I don't
Rice?
know what she was
Why
doing
Susan
that day.
Rice? Why Susan Rice?
They don't
She
have
was
press
available?
off.
Who knows?
Oh, they don't have press offices anywhere in the world where the Secretary of State's
Well,
at.
she wasn't there at the time. Maybe.
Franklin, Petraeus also testified that here's a copy of what the CIA produced, and it labeled it a terrorist attack and linked it to Al-Qaeda. So
and in Susan Rice's statements, she said, but we don't have our final assessment yet. It's still being produced.
CIA had a final. The CIA had a final assessment.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did. He gave it to him. He said, "Here it is. This is what we sent out the door."
His assessment was they didn't know who did it yet. What do you mean they had a final assessment?
They released.
Again, you're
wait a
minute.
minute. Let me stop. Then, what you just said should Miss Rice have gone out and said it was a video that caused it?
If they didn't have a final assessment, why'd she lay it on the video?
Yeah.
Because
why did she lay it on the video?
The points that she got implied that.
Oh, it was the video.
Well, who produced those talking points,
Well, wait
Franklin?
a minute, John. You're mixing up the issue.
I'm asking who produced the talking points.
You said she's either stupid or incompetent.
Well, if she said that's my question. That's what we want to know.
No.
He's asking
You just change it and go, who produced the talking
points? And I didn't say stupid. I said dishonest. Dishonest or incompetent.
Neither of those are the case, and you know
Well,
it.
Franklin, here's the problem. The CIA released a set of the talking points they produced.
Okay.
They said it was a terrorist attack and that it was linked to Al-Qaeda. Somewhere,
No, they did not.
They did, Franklin.
They
put a copy of it out.
No, they did not. What they said was possibly linked to Al-Qaeda.
All right, but the point is the one Susan Rice went out didn't say that at all. Didn't say possibly.
But that's also not the one she got.
That's the question, Franklin.
No,
Where
it's
did
not
she get
the
it?
question.
Who gave it to her?
It's not the question.
Do you know who gave it to her?
No, I don't.
Do you not want to know who gave it to her?
Of course I do.
Then why won't the president tell us?
Because there's an investigation going on right now, John, and you ought to let it happen instead of casting all these aspersions on people when you have no facts.
We have no facts because the people in charge of the facts don't want us to have them.
That's because you and your lame presidential candidate went on the news the morning afterwards and pronounced judgment on everything that happened when he didn't have any evidence.
You mean the statement that was exactly the
He
same
was right
statement
on.
the White House had released about the
was right
Egyptian
on.
embassy? Exactly the same statement.
All right. I guess we're coming up on the hour. We're going to go ahead and take our break right now. Well, I've got them quiet enough to take a break. And then we've got several other items we're going to talk about when we come back, like the physical cliff. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into